Can't sleep. Okay, so I guess we'll start with having each of the panelists introduce themselves. Okay.
I'm Rich Cavalli from SAIC. I'm a statistician by training, a knowledge management by practice, and also a work on government contracts, and I'll leave it at that.
I'm Paulette Degard from the Boeing Company. I actually work for Boeing Commercial Airplane Supplier Management as a knowledge strategist, and my work involves creating methodologies to capture and transfer knowledge within the organization. I spent 5 years in engineering and joined SM a couple of years ago. My doctorate is in entrepreneurial leadership and international business, but I've been working knowledge management stuff since the late 80s. It just kind of evolved, like many people evolved out of quality or some other arena, and then it became a little bit more formalized.
My name is Tom Deal. I'm an consultant. I work for the World Bank and work for the Department of Health and Human Services recently and my academic training is in logical mathematics. I thought I wouldn't like it as well. But then things changed and I became a computer programmer, but now actually that kind of skill is quite useful. Currently, I go around trying to persuade people to do things which I will call knowledge management if they don't like it. Hence the discussion this morning, so they do something else that is really knowledge management. But I really like knowledge management.
Hello, I'm Susan Golden. I'm Senior Product Manager for Content at a company in Seattle called Umbrella. We aggregate government procurement opportunities from state, local, and federal government, unstructured data, ugly data. Our job of my career to try to gain structure around it, categorize it, and index it. So currently today we're using a product called SmartLogic, which is out of the UK. We're building ontology, word by word, rule by rule, class by class. Heavy lifting. We have until the end of the year, then we start going on with auto categorization. I started life as a children's librarian. I became a reference librarian in Bellevue, Washington, home of Microsoft. I started my whole career is based on findability. Where are the books on taxes? Where can I find the recipe for X, Y, or Z? Signs in the library, then signs on the internet, usability. And then I would like to ask you, and I met you many years ago, I don't know if you remember, but it was about 10 years ago, I was in Seattle, and I was a consultant at the time, and I was trying to track down an environmental health historian. And so I was Googling one Sunday afternoon, I was Googling, and then I was on the internet one Sunday afternoon, and I thought, oh, this woman at the World Bank, she would know where to find this. So about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I emailed her directly, put it forward, 10 minutes later, she sent me a message.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to start the conversation now around stakeholders. If you had a knowledge science symposium or knowledge sciences center, who do you see as the stakeholders out of business? And we'll start on this one.
Let's see, for business, I think that fundamentally the stakeholders are our clients. And I think that we are active, I would say we are change agents. In my business, I'm a consultant. So we are change agents to activate that to our stakeholders, which are our clients. But that means that we have to understand
what's in the center to you, or who would the center cater to in your organization?
I think the center would be best done is either having symposiums for our clients to make them understand what the value of knowledge is, as opposed to thinking of it as a commodity. It's not just a commodity, it's much more than just a commodity. And then the other thing is, I would actually like to propose that it is a core element of the education process at university. I see us still teaching silos in the university systems, and as opposed to knowledge management, which I would say it's across all disciplines, and it should be like English is in high school. It's something that you have to have as opposed to you want to have. it's a core element of success as we go forward.
So for me, the stakeholders would be, at the Boeing Company, I'm one of a very small number of people who do what I do. And yet, the need is very great. So I get pulled in 1,000 different directions and still try to do my real day job as much as I can with very little assistance because, again, the value is not totally understood. So for me, it would be to, again, bring in people to the center to perpetuate what I do into other organizations so that there's a larger audience of KM people who can actually help. I mean, we build very complex products. We have a very complex world that we live in. It never stops. We build airplanes 24 hours a day in Everett. It's just unbelievable when you go out. We have a billion parts that come into the Everett plant every year, a million a month, right? So you start doing the math and you see that that's a huge number of pieces and parts. And my organization buys all those parts. So it's really great, but I can't go help other organizations because I've got 3,000 people I'm trying to support. So if the center had a certification, I likened it earlier to the project management crowd. Project management was pretty loose for a long time, but then they became a discipline, not a strong, hard, and fast discipline, but a discipline that's recognized worldwide for their capabilities and what they offer up to people who want to go into that field. And so if we could do something like that through the center, where people get educated, they have evidence, right, that they've been taught how to do these sorts of things that we do, that would be really, really great. I think that would be a tremendous help to somebody like me in my organization. Yep. Body of knowledge.
One.
Yeah, do you want to cover that one now?
Great.
My answer to the question as to who the stakeholders would be is, in business, is everyone who has to solve some kind of problem in their job to help their business, to keep their job, to get on in the world in any way whatsoever. So that's completely general. But let me focus on maybe another group. I've done work with a number of small businesses, and many of these businesses depend on government contracts. Sometimes they have 1, 2, 3, 4 government contracts. Sometimes they're a one-legged stool. So for them, the whole business of winning government contracts is essential. So if you talk to a business owner about this, something that will really grab their interests is the ability to write proposals and to write good proposals and to write them well and quickly and accurately. And to do it over and over again, not just as a commonly repeatable process, because everything involves intelligence when you do this, because the proposals are different, but to do it in a way that does really make use of all the knowledge you have within your company. A typical government proposal will require that you understand what they want, that you have experience, proven experience or validated experience in those areas, and that you are innovative and you're going to produce something new to do things better than it's been done before. I would say knowledge management and a knowledge sciences centre could focus on these people as key stakeholders in this, because for them it's a matter of, does my business live or does it die? So they could be, I think, a very good focal point for this.
And I think for me, I mean, I came into this company, which is really essentially a knowledge management company, but they did not know that. And they asked me, and I think we should talk about it at lunch, how long, they wanted me to help them improve their findability. How long will it take and how much will it cost? And they asked me that in the interview. And they asked me that for 3 or 4 months before I finally told them to shut up and let me start doing some work. And so then the next step for me was, now after we identified the problem, the fact that everything was hard-coded so that the developers weren't going to be able to do a thing for 2 years. The next step then was start assessing technology, and I know Boeing's using smart logic. We had a lot of conversations because we were locally, but it was very difficult for me to come up quickly, one human being come up to speed very, very quickly on what technology is out there. I mean, they're going to tell you how you call go to the company directly, they're going to tell you how great they are. But we had to test it. We had to take the time to bring the technology inside and do hard-coded tests with our developer team, and so that they could have the same experience that I had evaluating it, and then made a very expensive choice to bring it on board. It was a very expensive decision to make, and we had to make it quickly, and now we have to prove it out. So that's the technology assessment. And the second one is human potential. I do a lot of work with the Information School at the University of Washington, Mike Crandall, 15 years, and I'm a conduit between any place I've ever worked in the last 20 years and the University of Washington Information School. And I can bring students on board for projects just like that. It's just wonderful. If I were not within any company where I've been, those students wouldn't be getting those opportunities unless somebody at the iSchool was promoting them, which they do. They have internships. But that connection is really, really, really critical.
Okay. I'm done. Okay. Excellent. I just want to, and with a brief response, I want to throw something out to you because it sounds like all of you are saying that the business user needs some types of information from the Knowledge Center as well. There are, and again, I'm going to say 4 areas and either say yes, you think all of them should be, or identify the ones you think you shouldn't. Seems like you have some business types that you feel would need activities as a stakeholder from the Knowledge Center, that you have specialists or KM specialists that might need to be a stakeholder from the Knowledge Center, and that you also have everyone who is a knowledge worker that should be a stakeholder, as well as maybe the C-level or management level that might be a stakeholder in various different roles. But could you talk to that for a second? Or just confirm those memos or?
Yes, and yes. But they're different. Each one of them is different, and but there's a kind of a foundation across all of them that they have. That's it.
No, I agree. The difficulty is that because there is disparity in the need and the granularity of what each group needs, that's where I really run into trouble. So a manager doesn't need to have the granularity that a procurement agent needs, right? Of a step by step to do something. But yeah, definitely, I think each level needs it.
Well, I think that this actually brings up a good question when Denise spoke about people being left behind in the move to the knowledge economy. Who are these people and why would they be left behind? I think I agree with all 4 of the groups that you mentioned. The question then is, who would you actually think would not be a stakeholder in this? Now, that again makes it very diffuse and difficult to manage, but there are some key people you must focus on. I think the 4 groups were definitely spot on, but I think thinking about those who are perhaps outlets of those immediate groups and how they're brought in would be very helpful.
I agree. You agree. Okay. Now what we're going to talk about are the activities. If there are any KM activities or knowledge activities that you think would be best supported by the Knowledge Science, I want to say symposium, Knowledge Science Center. Okay. Why don't we start down on this end?
Let me think about it for a minute. Go ahead.
Well, in terms of activities, one of the fundamental knowledge activities is the elicitation of tacit knowledge. And if it is true that there is this vast wealth of tacit knowledge out there, which we don't know of, with people who have experience in the past, it could be very useful now. Or if you talk about the silver tsunami, this great loss of knowledge as the baby boomers retire. The elicitation of this, not over a 2-week handover period, as is often the case, but I'm talking about over years, and finding methods for making this a natural part of your business life, and even carrying over into your private life. I mean, if people are willing to share all the rubbish that goes on in their daily life on Facebook, then why don't they share this other stuff with some kind of incentive to do so on something that's a bit more professional? I think an encouragement of that would actually resonate with a lot of people. There are so many people who want to, some people just want to get away from it. I don't want to touch those people over again in my life. But there are so many people who want to stay part of it, either for semi-financial reasons or for reasons of pride, professional pride, or just because they want to contribute, they want to do something that they feel is worthwhile. So I think that would be an excellent activity to pursue. Finding mechanisms for that, ways of doing that, I think is one of the key things for it.
The word silver kind of woke me up. And that's really kind of why I'm here too. I'm here because I feel like I'm about to, one of these days, I don't know when yet, but soon, one of these years, leave the actual work world, the 24/7 work world, such as it is, but still keep my fingers in the pot, because I feel like I have a lot of passion, and I do have a lot of history, and I think some of it's quite relevant. But I also feel that comes back to, you know.
We're trying to experiment. We have Nancy Lewis online, and we're going to see if she can speak through my headphone speakers into the mic. Hi, listen. We'll ask Nancy Lewis herself too.
Hi, this is Nancy Lewis from the phone company. Can you hear me?
Stop the mic, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Hi. I just wanted to say I think one of the big knowledge activities that corporations need to work on is collaborative tools. Can you hear that? We're finding that we are working with people in so many different parts of the world.
So let me provide a scenario that I think has. Let me try to provide a scenario that I think might be of interest. There is this phenomenon called gaming, and it's amazing what the subject matter of the game is. But there's also been some recent experiments on crowdsourcing of solving difficult problems and providing an opportunity for that. And I would challenge the center to start to experiment with engagements like that, where you have a game you can for those that don't have internet access that they could engage with, or that could be limited access, solving problems instead of shooting people, and having opportunities to get into that. But then the other, not shooting people, but solving problems. But the other thing is crowdsourcing a problem. There was couple of recent experiments that were done where problems that could not be solved were solved within minutes, well, within hours, by engaging the community of internet users, and the results were pretty phenomenal. And I would think that, and because what was the solution? I mean, how did they come up with? Diversity of ideas and the willingness to try things that people did not want to experiment on their own. They were engaged, and they were engaged across the world, and they had 100,000 researchers working on it. And I think those have some very good opportunities as we move forward in this knowledge economy.
So segueing off of that, one of the things we're doing at Boeing is we have our own internal Facebook thing that's called Insight. But the purpose of it is to find answers to questions. So one day, a buddy of mine was having an Excel issue, and she needed to separate from the mothership so she could edit her page, because every time she edited it, it would go back to whatever the mothership was saying. And so she was going to spend 8 hours trying to figure out how to go solve this problem by redoing all the work that had been done already, right? So all of a sudden I had this thought. I said, oh, well, let's go into Insight. So we went into Insight and posed the question, how do you keep your data clean on an individual sheet when it's connected to a larger spreadsheet? And this guy in 5 minutes solved the problem for her, which I thought was pretty cool, because she was going to take 8 hours. So that's one of my financial bases of the work I do. In 5 minutes, we solved a problem that was going to take 8 hours, and that was pretty cool. So that sort of activity, and also from the center side of it, the things that I could use help with are, so I built a learning camp to help with our knowledge transfer within our organization. So that's one method, but there's tons of ways that other people out here have done work. It would be really nice if we had a repository or access to what are other people doing, and can we document those things in some sort of logical, without putting a burden on anybody. We're all busy people, but I could sit down and write up about the learning camp in, an hour, that somebody else could take that model and go deploy it for new employees or transitioning employees or whatever. So that, to me, as an activity, would be really, really great if we could tap into each other's capabilities.
I'm going to try to get to the other two questions. I'm going to say succinctly, engaging the stakeholders and the activities. What would be your method, or what approach would you take to engaging the people within your organization?
I think to get them engaged, they have to own the problem. And I'm not sure that a lot of the stakeholders understand that they are owners of the problem, and yet they don't understand that the knowledge economy has happened to them. So I think you've got to help them with an awareness that so you have to have some kind of engagement that allows them to discover. It's not something you can inflict on them. It's something they have to discover and own if you're going to have transformation.
I think another part of the equation is to show the productivity gains that come from what we do. So in engineering, I went out and proved that by saving 1 hour a day, a week per employee, was a $2.4 million productivity gain. And that was 1 hour. And that was just so they could access stuff electronically. I was looking for $1.2 million, so I was able to double my what I was requesting. And it is a productivity gain, but that's real money. That means somebody's spending 30 seconds working on something and 59.5 minutes doing real work, right? They're not having to spend an hour to find something.
To take the example I mentioned of people who have retired and moved or are moving out of the workforce, the incentive for them could be internal, it could be quite natural, but I don't see any problem in businesses actually finding some way of offering a financial incentive to those who have retired to remain part of their workforce in some way. This doesn't have to be a huge remuneration, but it could certainly be something that would be worth doing. So people could spend a few hours a week doing this on an as-needed basis, providing expertise when required. And that, I think, would be a good model for addressing some of the bigger issues that we have, such as if Social Security money is going to run out, as some say, who knows. This could be one way of actually dealing with that issue to some extent. So it could be quite attractive to government legislators and could be quite attractive to businesses as well. Because by being able to tap into this expertise when needed, they could probably get better results. I'm just making a guess about that, but I think they probably could. Yeah.
I think I'm probably interpreting the question a little differently, but so what? Who would be the beneficiary? How would my organization benefit from this? So what you have to offer? We sit on 12 years of government procurement data. State, local, federal, county. Big, black, massive database. And when we are able to commoditize that, that will be worth a lot of money for our company. And it will be a lot of information we can give back to the community, private sector, public sector. So if I could have gone to you when I was first hired 2 years ago and said, help me understand, to explain to these guys how we can do this and to quantify the cost to do this and get the argument across to them, that would have made this process go a lot faster. I think we're getting there slowly, but that kind of helping the person on the inside share the value in a more constructive way, just like they're doing at Boeing. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor now if anyone wants to join in and contribute to talk about the stakeholders, activities, and how you engage these people into knowledge.
Yeah. First of all, John, you were talking about keeping the retirees engaged. I heard a phrase the other day that seems to fit that perfectly. It's called the encore career. And it's a reality. We can't expect people to put people out to pasture. It kills them, and it kills our economy. We're also talking about the economic model. I mean, that fits in there too. The need for, well, I'll just leave it, let someone else comment.
Can I just respond to that? I have two children, one age 9, one age 7. I had children kind of later in life. And I spoke to my financial plan and I said, when can I retire? And he says, I'm 85 and 3/4 years old. So I have a kind of vested interest in this whole idea.
Let me just comment on that prospect. You know, I have a mother who's 93 years old, and she gets on the internet every day and talks to her kids, and it's a phenomenal revelation to me as a person who lives in the technology, that you never stop learning and you can never stop adapting, and that process is not exclusive to the young.
Just a suggestion, but as far as the business community, I know that the Small Business Administration has a model that you might want to look at. I know that people who are interested in building a small business can go to the SBA and get templates for creating business plans and business proposals and just a whole plethora of information on building a small business, as well as there's usually people who are experts who are associated with each of the offices for the SBA, who are willing to share their expertise. So it's just a suggestion of, you know, another model that you might want to consider looking at. Can I ask a question as opposed to give you input? I would love to give you input, but I'm not clear on what this center is going to be like. Are people going to have to join it and pay money? Is it going to be free? I have no concept of you know, what? Presents? I don't know. Because it makes a difference. And what?
I know, but that's one of the questions we want to hear from all of you. Okay, so.
There are several things that you guys brought up, which I think are really interesting. This knowledge, you know, body of knowledge. That's really cool. You know, being able to harness expertise and methods where that needs to be brought to bear. Both people on the left-hand side sort of focused in on high-value problems. You know, what technology you're saying. If you can give me a way to get to a quality proposal fast and at reasonable cost that, by God, it changes my win percentage, you know, you're my friend for life. Yours is looking at one where, you know, I don't care what technology you use, if you can get on top of that kind of, you know, and people use it. I would generalize that to align with some of the things I was saying, is that there's a whole classes of knowledge-intensive problems in business that can, you know, that could benefit from a champion for the new kinds of solutions that pull it off. And so some sort of, you know, body of knowledge about, you know, like capturing really good solution ideas and models, maybe even able to back it up with expertise of people who did it or a network of folks, you know, but basically being the champion of the better is something, you know, all businesses want. I mean, people build businesses just to do that. And the idea of the encore careers, now that one, that's, you know, I mean, hello, can we talk?
We actually have a very large activity of Boeing because we have such a large workforce and the percentage of departures is so high that we have a huge encore system where people come back for whatever period of time. A lot of people come back as contractors, and the encore program is a little bit different. It's for really deep experts at Boeing, for really deep experts, where if it's somebody who's got a set of knowledge that wasn't really transferred, then they come back as a contractor. But either way, we're still continuing to tap into our aging workforce. But it's kind of, with the kind of products we create, it's kind of scary sometimes. I can't think about these things after 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I would never sleep, knowing what I know about, you know, the changing workforce and the differences in the generations, right? So the new generation coming in doesn't solve problems, or they don't do things the way that the people going out the door are. So we're trying to have to bridge these two different generation changes, and so the people in the middle are kind of that bridge, and they're not always sure exactly how to serve both sides of that coin. So it's a very fascinating. It's a great study in psychology.
Keep going on time here.
Yeah. Maybe 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Derek Rector, a company called Dymax. I'm an entrepreneur, and so it's a different perspective on the business thing. This Encore idea is actually a concept, a product that we've been working on for a couple of years, trying to develop an enterprise-class technology that would allow an organization to effectively identify who possesses knowledge. In other words, information is a pathway to the right person, regardless of whether or not that person still works for you. One of the things that I would like to see in the center is the capacity to connect entrepreneurs or companies that are out there working. We work with organizations like the National Academy of Engineering, the World Bank, so we've got all sorts of things out there that we've created that probably would have been useful to this community if we'd had somebody to tell them about it, a way to share a venue to connect with early adopter customers, with investors who are interested in these concepts. So for us as an entrepreneurial company, that's something I'd really like to see in this is a way to connect with the Boeings and the companies that actually have these problems on a scale where our technologies actually make sense at this stage. So
I want to ask you a question. Are you thinking of some sort of a LinkedIn kind of directory that's been vetted?
No, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that.
I'm assuming it is, but I want to hear a little more detail about that.
Yeah, basically, if you look at content, so there hasn't been a lot of change in content management over the last few years. It's one new content management system after another, but there really isn't a lot that changes. What we did actually at the World Bank, I'll just share one of the projects we did, and we actually did some work with Denise on this. We took large financial sector reports, 300 pages. We dynamically parsed them, broke them down into hundreds of little pieces, and then we cataloged them. We integrated with a technology she and her team had created called Teragram, which was, Denise could tell you more about it, but basically we automated the application of ontology on this body of hundreds of publications. What this meant was, instead of finding, a report that you'd have to then dig through 300 pages to find the right bit of information about some financial sector aspect of Bulgaria, you would actually find the specific part of the report. And it would be rated or ranked to a certain extent because of the integration with Teragram. What was missing was, who is the person I should talk to now to put this into the context in which I'm working? And that's where this Encore concept comes in. Because the work that I do, consulting also, the person who possesses that knowledge may have left the organization 10 years ago. It may be a problem that only surfaces once every 25 years, even in a massive company or a massive organization. So the point that I'm making about the center is, I see this as a potential venue where a company like ours that is doing what I think is pretty cutting edge stuff technologically can find partners to push that along, right? Yeah.
I think we got.
Here, I'll wait for you.
Someone else.
Cool. A couple other variations on that. Everybody needs to know the future. Everybody needs to know what's going on. So on the one hand, being able to amass the predictive kind of side of things. I mean, hey, we're spending a lot of money in certain parts of our government trying to do this, but that applies to everybody. Number two is another concept for the knowledge center, which goes on along the same lines as write a good proposal. You basically want to be able to help people with a whole chain of things that they're doing as opposed to just one part of it when you can. An example might be people need access to industry analyst, investor, kinds of reports. So the interesting things about them is that they're written, in kind of a thesis argumentation kind of, style. And so it actually turns out when you read Morgan Stanley and J.P. Morgan and so on, they have there's a kind of a way that they write the stuff that anyway, it's the ability to parse, to do combinatorics on it, be able to put things together and develop, kind of thesis. Well, nobody's got time to buy all of that, read all of that, so on. What if you could get the gist, or you could get, really good access and summarizations, with drill down, drill back, and I love your idea. Oh, by the way, there's a guy, somewhere that you can go talk to. So those are great things.
I want to make sure back here. She had her hand up.
And let me just, I think Leslie's been working on something similar, so I want to make sure she gets that.
Yeah.
So I'm Leslie Schneer, following on World Bank, former World Bank staff member. And I just wanted to capitalize on this, talking about the Encore generation. Your Encore, by the way, is an organization that will help you find another job. But what I wanted to say is that I'm now working with the World Bank Alumni Society, looking at how can we share our knowledge of development back with the World Bank Group. And it's a big challenge, and one of the points I wanted to make was about engagement. Because, like you were mentioning, a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, we have a new collaboration platform, and most people send me stuff to post it. So how do I get, and it's not necessarily a generational thing, it's an experience and comfort level thing, but I think that's one of the things that the center's going to have to look at, is how do you engage and to create different modalities for engaging. This is a challenge that we're dealing with.
Okay, Wendy up front had her hand up.
Can I quickly make a point that the whole business of whether people want to find out what they need to know through searching for it or browsing for it in some ways versus finding someone who knows about it. I've done a number of surveys in my working life about this, and I've read research into it. And the figure is always roughly 70, 30, 80, 20 in favour of talking to someone, because the interaction is richer. There's a greater chance you're going to get good information, validated information, real knowledge, in fact. And there's something just better about the experience if you do it that way. The old joke about men never wanting to ask for directions, but women always will. That actually isn't that true. There's maybe 20% of men who are like that, but you know the kind. Most guys are quite happy to go into the petrol station, the garage, whatever, and just ask. So I think we're really onto something here. This whole idea of getting people connected, getting expertise made explicit, and having connections between people who know stuff. I think that's a very important idea, and definitely one we should promote.
I want to respond to the thinking around the business model. As you were talking, two things occurred to me. One is the notion of an incubator environment, especially as you have all these businesses. I'm thinking of small businesses, entrepreneurs. So there is an opportunity, I think, within this space to carve out, exactly what kind of entities, whether they're for-profit, not-for-profit, but to incubate. That also opens up then an opportunity for groups to invest in those businesses, so that you can almost become some sort of incubator. So that you start to. I know we're not only talking about financials, but we also are talking about there's this fungible stuff called money, and it would potentially create an opportunity for the center to actually kind of become an economic engine in and of itself. So I think, especially when you have the business community engaged, they're pretty interested, and there might be opportunities for technologies that have knowledge components that a Boeing might be interested in, and they might opt to incubate that part of the business, at the whether it's a physical place or a virtual.
Can I make one comment? I sat here and listened, and maybe it's because I'm of that age. That Encore thing seems really cool, but I can't help to think of it would be nice to engage a group of this size of people that were in high school and get their perspective, because they're the ones that are going to live it. And their knowledge of technology is so much superior to me, that I'm a technologist, that I would wonder what the perspective would be from their perspective. And you could take it in, you know, school places around DC, or I don't care where. You might get a different perspective, and I think you could get a good idea of what they're looking for a center as well.
I think we know stakeholders. I can talk loud enough for them to hear me. We not only would be as stakeholders be on board career, but we talked about education, so we opened up to previous careers as well. As a stakeholder.
So the persona that I have in the work, and I think about her every day, I don't have her picture up anymore, but I used to. Her name is Zoe Hazen. She's 11 years old, and in 10 years, she's going to come to work at the Boeing Company. And are we going to be ready for her? Are we really, really going to be ready for her? And I actually didn't know Zoe Hazen. She's a friend of mine's daughter. But I do that in my mind because it's so easy to think about the aging workforce and forget about, okay, they're going out the door, so they don't, all they care about is that we perpetuate the company so their pension continues. And they'll say that to you. There are people who flat out say that to you. You keep working because I want my pension. But it's not me. I'm not that far from retirement either. It's the Zoe Hazens of the world. And we need to make sure she gets the right education. We need to make sure that she understands the culture and help with the culture shift. We need to help understand why this would be a place she'd even want to come work, right? All those questions go through my mind as I think about the work that I do to help perpetuate the knowledge within our organization.
Just one point I want to make. I want to tell you about the Technology Access Foundation, which was started in Seattle in the early 90s by Trish Malines, and she was an African-American woman who was very high up at Microsoft, made a lot of money, left very young, and she and her partner started the Technology Access Foundation, and the goal was technology into the inner city to give it to minority kids. And she's been doing that for the last, well, it's been at least 15 years now. TAF is TAF.org, I think is the name of it, or Technology Access Foundation. She's got the perfect business model to look at to get this into the younger community.
Okay, we'll be following up with a grant proposal for her. Danny and everybody, thank you. Thank you. We'll get her knowledge value back. Thank you so much. This is great. Thank you.